United Cacao, which came to the London market late last year under the ticker CHOC, has seen a near 90% rise in its share price since the IPO. But where does it go from here? Co-founder Dennis Melka joins us. He's executive chairman and also CEO of the company. Dennis, good to talk to you again.
Thanks for having me back again, Jim.
What's it like as a listed company? You've been out there, what, 7 months now?
Absolutely. Well, we had a very exciting 6 months. We listed 2 weeks ago on the Lima Stock Exchange. We now have 1,250 hectares planted, which is up from the 300 hectares planted when we met in December last year. We're on track to hit the 2,000 hectares by December, which will make us the largest cacao estate in all of Latin America. Our goal is to hit over 3,250 hectares by the end of next year, making us the largest plantation in the world. We now employ over 500 people in a real poverty-stricken part of the country. We've announced a community small farmer program, which is going to double the size of the company through an outgrower program. So we're very excited. It's been quite busy.
I know you report in dollars, and we'll talk about your full results, which you just released or recently released. But I do want to get an idea as to where you're going in terms of funding, because you raised, well, I think £6.4 million, didn't you, when you came to the London Stock Exchange in December last year. How's the money going? What's the cash burn like? I think you were anticipating on being able to fund all of this plantation program. Is that right?
Well, with the approximately £6 million that we raised, that funds us for the 2,000 hectares.
Right.
So if we want to continue the planting for next year, which is another 1,250 hectares to get us up to the 3,250, we would need to use bank finance or potentially raise some equity as well.
Right, and of course, with the share price going the way it is, presumably that becomes an easier task.
Well, I think the company has a lot of options, so we're exploring those. We are in discussion with local banks, and those are going quite well.
Yeah, and of course you're also ultimately you're going to be selling into a market that at the moment at least it looks like there's limited supply, or supply is being limited, isn't it? There's a lot of restriction I think in Ghana at the moment, isn't it? Where there's a lot of...
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the world's 4 largest producers of cacao, which is Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Indonesia and Brazil, now Indonesia and Brazil have become net importers. Because of the booming demand for confectionery product in those countries, they are no longer exporting. So the whole world is relying on Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. A few months ago, Ghana announced, really shocking the market, that they would be lucky to produce almost 700,000 tons. That's down from 1 million tons 3 years ago. So this is, I believe, one of the few commodities in the world where there's less of it being produced today than several years ago. Yet demand every single year keeps going up. So we think we're in an incredible market, and I think the next few years will be very exciting.
What are the risks here? I mean, these new plantations are going out. What are the risks in the plantation process and the ultimate, because you've got to get these crops mature, haven't you?
Absolutely. It's a very intensive capital investment that we're doing now. And so that's the challenge, is coordinating all this, making sure it's running efficiently, that we are spending dollars with shareholders in mind and being as efficient as we can. So absolutely, we have our eye on the ground. I'm there regularly in the field. We have a very incredible disciplined team. We've built up the team over the last 6 months, post-IPO. I think, if anything, we have the best team in cacao in the world now. So everything is moving to plan, and we're quite excited.
Yeah, this cacao thing, for people that don't know, explain how it fits into the cacao business and so forth.
Well, it's a cacao tree which produces pods. In those pods are cacao beans, which are then processed and turned into cocoa powder or cocoa butter. And depending on what type of chocolate you consume, what type of confectionery, there'll be an element of cocoa butter or cocoa powder. So cacao is the tree which produces the pods which actually have the valuable beans.
And ultimately, I know that they had to be ground down. When we last spoke, you said you've got sort of one eye on the potential to go into the grinding business. Is there any more development on that?
I would say we've thought a lot about it, but when I look at the competition that's in the grinding business today, it makes sense for us to really stay as a producer. If you look at the grinders that are out there, they are all suffering from very low margins and extremely high capacity. Now that's good for a producer. It means that there's a lot of plants out there that need beans to be running. But I think for us to go into grinding at this point wouldn't make sense. If you look at the amount of grinding capacity that's out there, people have estimated that there's over 7 million tons of capacity globally. Compare that with production of only 4.1 million tons or 4.2 million tons. So I think that's an industry for the time being. We'll stay out. Let's see how it shakes out and what opportunities arise. But we're going to focus on building the highest yielding, most efficient, lowest cost cacao plantation in the world.
I mentioned the full year earnings. I've left it this long into the interview to talk about it because these earnings actually, I think, ended this December, didn't they, 2014?
Correct. It's really the 1 month post-IPO.
Yeah. So just tell us what the message was from there and the sort of progress you made. I mean, you talked a little bit about the progress, but in terms of what you produced on those numbers in December.
Well, this is a year of heavy investment. So no revenue for last year, obviously, given the stage of the company. This year, we expect no revenue. For next year, we expect revenue to be coming in. But for the results this year, it really shows the effect of the IPO, the increased capital base, and a strong, healthy balance sheet of over $20 million of equity in total invested and zero debt. So I think we are a very prudent capital structure. We'd like to use as low leverage as possible, and I think the commodity allows us to do that.
When we met last time, you were talking about this Lima listing. You said you've done that successfully. Yes. What came out of that? I mean, you raised 6.4 million here. What was the purpose of the listing in Lima?
We didn't raise any capital in Lima, but we felt it very important to be listed there for a couple of reasons. Number one, a profile in the country and in the Latin American market. If you look at the Peruvian exchange, there's an integration going on now with Colombia, Mexico, and some of the other countries. So they're actually creating an exchange to be rivaled in size to the Brazilian market. So we think it's important to be able to tap that demand over time. And when we look at the natural buyers of the stock in our company over time, as we mature, as we have dividends and earnings, I would argue it's the Peruvian pension funds. So Peru has a privatized pension fund system. We're not eligible for that capital yet because we're too young, we're not paying a dividend. But in a couple of years we will be, and I think that creates a very stable, exciting shareholder base that eventually I think we'll have a lot of success with in Peru.
And those shareholders that have bought into this, looking at this interview, are you going to be going right the way through to producing and a long-term holder of this? Because in the past you've built up a company, you sold it on, it's belonged to someone else. Do you intend to persist with this business? Is that the long-term plan?
My objective as a CEO is to build the best possible company that we can, to run it as well as we can, have the lowest cost structure, highest output. And I think if we do that, we have a lot of options. And of course, as a publicly traded company, we consider all opportunities, but our focus is building on the best company and maximizing value for shareholders. So if in the future there's opportunities for consolidation, we'll definitely look at them. But I think for the time being, for the next 18 months, we want to plant out the remaining part of the estate.
Yeah, okay, that would take you up to the end of the plantation. What about the end of this year? What milestones should we should be looking out for this remainder of this year?
Well, we want to hit the 2,000 hectares planted. So that'll make us the largest cacao estate in all of Latin America. We'll have the latest clonal material. We believe we have the best material in the industry. We're using CCN 51. We're importing ESS. This is the highest yielding material available globally. So we think we have an incredible estate. We want to hit that 2,000 hectare number by the end of the year. And I think that'll create quite a bit of value for shareholders. Because remember, those trees that are in the ground, they're growing for the next 30, 40, 50 years.
Look, Dennis, it's a pleasure. Thanks indeed for coming in.
Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
It's Dennis Melka. He's the Chief Executive, Executive Chairman and Founder of United Cacao.